We made it to Wednesday. It's Jim, it's Amadeus, and Amadeus. Last night, you and I both were, a little bit concerned about South Florida and how they were playing against Charlotte. But hey, stranger things have happened. They came back and won the game in the final 29 seconds.
Yeah, they had a terrible start to their game, but they've done that a few times now in a few games, and they are the new cardiac kids. They just keep coming back, and they don't stop. And doesn't matter how much they've shown a few times now. Doesn't matter how much they're down, they will come back in the second half, and they will make it a game. So good on them. That was my game of the year yesterday in the AAC, and so that one cashed by about a half
Yeah.
point, but that was good.
Hey, they don't ask how, they just ask how many, right?
Exactly.
Um, Really big news in the broadcasting realm here in the U.S., and that is that ESPN, Fox, and Warner Discovery, which is what we know as the Turner Networks, which is, of course, TBS and TNT, are merging, and they're going to have a new company that has each one of them will have one third equity in it, and it will become a streamer starting this fall. So everything that is on ESPN, everything that is on Fox, and everything that is on the folks at the Turner Networks, which are now Warner Brothers and Discovery, will be on one single app.
Yeah, I saw that, and I mean, clearly, they're looking to compete with Amazon and some of these other streaming services that have obviously been grabbing all the sports now. Apple
Mhm.
TV with their MLS deal there. So yeah, I mean, I haven't looked too much into the details, but definitely sounds interesting what they're trying to do here. So it makes sense. I mean, that's what people want, right? Just a streaming
Yeah.
service where I can get all the games, and if you're three
Mhm.
different companies that have the rights to, your three different entities, and then you take all the games you have rights to and you merged into one. I mean, it can only be good, I would think.
Yeah. Here's the thing. If you are, because Fox owns a small portion of Hulu, and Disney owns all of it. If you're a subscriber to Disney Plus, if you're just a subscriber to to Hulu, then you will be able to get a break on on buying this service because you can bundle them, right? If on the other hand all you want is sports, I'm really curious as to what that price point's going to be. You mentioned Netflix, which is about $12 or $13 now. Are we going to be willing to pay close to $20 million? I'm 20, close to 20 per month for all the sports.
Yeah, definitely. I would think they'll have to work out something with package deals, because
Hmm.
obviously there's going to be people that don't care about sports and just want, the usual
Sure.
shows that they were getting beforehand. And there's going to be people, that only want the sports.
Right.
Obviously, there'll be people who want both or none. But yeah,
Right.
you're gonna get those scenarios where you're gonna have someone who just wants the sports package, and doesn't
Mhm.
really care about any of the shows you're carrying because they don't really watch TV other than when the game is on.
Right. So you'll have that option as well. That leaves us with CBS and NBC out in the cold as to what they're going to do. But the content that CBS and NBC has certainly is strong enough to warrant potentially a partnership with either Amazon or Apple. So consolidation really makes sense because you want to get everything into one space if it's all possible, and then people don't mind paying a premium for it. They only mind paying a premium for it whenever it becomes a problem of having to have six of them to get all the sports or all the entertainments you want.
Yeah, and that's been the problem with streaming services, right? That's been the
Hmm.
complaint so far is, people don't want to have to buy 5 or 6, and you got to pay, $20 a month for five
Right.
or six streaming services just to get, I want this team or I want this league and that. So as you said, consolidation makes the most sense because in my opinion, if you're the streaming services, you have to look at it like, our goal is to kill cable,
Hmm.
or phase it out at least, right?
Right.
So you have to maybe, what we're doing right now, 20 different streaming services just fighting with each other. That's not really killing off cable. What you got to do is, you got to start partnering together and saying, okay, let's offer a bulk of these games in one place, which is what people
Hmm.
want. And then maybe, yeah, someone decides, well, I don't need cable now because I have the ESPN, Fox, whatever
Hmm.
package, Warner Brothers package, and I'm getting all the teams and games that I want to be watching.
Yeah. And Fox now has a streaming partner, and they didn't have one before.
Yeah.
So that's a definite plus for them. So it is. I'm in the fifth year of being off cable, and sometimes it's started to get. It's not as much as it's gotten expensive, which it has. It's still cheaper than cable, but there's some things you had mentioned. Well, I want to see a specific show. Well, sometimes that's the only show on that entire streaming platform that you want to see. So what you normally do, or what I've done in the past, is cancel one for a couple of months and picked up the one that has the show I want to see, and then once the show is over, I cancel that one and pick up another one.
Yep, I know people that do the same. Basically they cancel it for the whole year, and then once
Mhm.
they post the new season of whatever show you're watching, right?
Right?
You buy 1 month, you
Yeah.
binge watch it, and then you cancel it again.
Right. Right. I mean, I was that way with Hulu with Only Murders in the Building. It was like I like that show, but there's a lot of stuff there I don't. So, and then of course, you and I and many people, it's like you just don't have time to watch all the stuff that you're even the people say, "Hey, have you caught this?" Or hey, yeah, and you think, "Well, that's kind of sounds like a good show," but oh, by the way, it's now 9:30, and how did that happen? The day has passed me by. Um, so we'll see. We'll see how it works out. Jimmy Pitero um, said a couple of months ago. He's the president of ESPN. Jimmy said that he thought that ESPN would launch their site, which is all ESPN, at $25. I think that if $25, I think is a very high price point. If that's going to be this threesome of folks.
Yeah, definitely a lot higher than most of the streaming services. I
Right.
only have one that really is that expensive.
Hmm.
And I only keep it around because that's who has the rights to the Premier League in Canada, and it's the only
Hmm.
place you can get because they happen to have
Hmm.
monopoly on that league. But yeah, there's sometimes you can find them on multiple. Like I have another streaming service where a lot of my soccer leagues, they're
Hmm.
on the same streaming service as the other one I'm paying for. So yeah,
Hmm.
ESPN definitely has to be careful before picking a price point for sure.
Yep. Okay. Let's. You know it's Super Bowl week, so the some interesting stats I found, and I'm just going to throw them out there and see what you think. Now, you said to me that you felt that, and pretty much all of the times we've talked about the playoffs, that the Chiefs, whoever they're playing, it's going to be a close game. Let me show you how absolutely right you are. The Chiefs are 88-25 with Patrick Mahomes as their starter. Okay. In his 113 games, which is what that would be if you add it all together, Mahomes has started. Just four opponents have beaten him by scores of more than 7 points. That's 113 games. Only 4 teams have beaten the Chiefs by 7, more than 7 points.
Yeah, definitely a team that doesn't go down without a fight, as we've seen many times. And when you have, one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL right now, how can you go down without putting up a fight? So that totally makes sense to me. I mean, they're in a lot of close games for sure, and they've had such a good team since he's been on it. I mean, it's hard to see them getting blown out in too many games.
Okay, here's a fun one for the 49ers. With Brock Purdy, they're 21-5. Purdy is their starter. Just 3 of those losses were more than 1 possession. So we have 2 teams here that don't get blown out a lot.
Yeah, a lot of people seem to forget. Like I know we love to take the credit away from Purdy and all of these wins that he's getting, but people seem to forget. When he was tossed in last season, as not counting the Eagles game they lost because he played about 5 snaps before getting taken out with a concussion, or sorry, not a concussion, a UCL injury. Yeah, not a lot of people want to talk about the fact that he started his career 13-0 as a starter. And if you actually go back to the 49ers offense last season under Jimmy Garoppolo, in that first half of the season, they were winning games, but they were a lot closer, low-scoring defensive games. Ever since Purdy's been injected into the offense has averaged at least 10 more points per game than when Jimmy Garoppolo was running it. So Brock Purdy has had say what you want about him, but he's had a massive impact on this offense since getting injected in there. So yeah, definitely doesn't surprise me there.
Well, and I believe 3 of the 5 losses that Brock Purdy suffered was when Deebo Samuels was injured.
Yeah, they had that. They started the season 5-0, and they lost those 3 straight games. Right. And other than that, they didn't lose another game until until they lost to Baltimore there, who obviously blew them out. And then they had that loss at the end of the season in a game where nobody played for the Rams or the 49ers. So yeah, definitely not a team that gets blown out a lot, and especially the way that their defense has played. I mean, look at them in their last game against the Lions. They were getting blown out at halftime 24-7, and what did the defense do? They came out. They don't allow a single point. The offense scored 27 unanswered, and they had a 10-point lead before the Lions were able to score that pity touchdown at the end of the game there on the 4th and goal.
One of the things to look out for, because you look at matchups, and a fun matchup is Kyle Shanahan versus Spagnuolo, the defensive coordinator of the Chiefs. Since Spags has come over, he's done a pretty good job. Steve Spagnuolo, not a good head coach, but he's a pretty good defensive caller, and he's had Kyle's number in the past few years that they've faced each other, and specifically with the Chiefs. I mean, the 2 times they played, Spagnuolo has done quite well against Kyle Shanahan. Now we'll have to see how that translates into a game on Sunday, but at the moment, just looking off of the off the stats, it's not it's really a tough thing to say, with regard to Spagnuolo's ability to, dial up the right things to keep, the 49ers off guard. That said, I'm quite sure that Kyle Shanahan's not going to give him anything that he saw when the 2 teams have played in the past. And by the way, we should note that one of those games is Jimmy Garoppolo playing quarterback and not Brock Purdy.
Yeah, well, Spags has definitely had a big impact on this defense, as we've seen. The defense has been the strength of the Chiefs all year, definitely not their offense. And if you look at their defense, you've said it before. They played the Ravens, that you thought their passing defense was better than the Ravens' passing defense, and sure enough, it is. The Kansas City Chiefs have the number one defense in the NFL right now for points allowed, and it's a defense that really what's really been highlighted about this defense is how they haven't given up. They haven't given up too many second half points this season, really. And if you look at their last 8 straight games, they've given up 7 points or less in the second half. So definitely, this is a team that has a very good defense, and that's going to be a big problem for San Francisco on Sunday for sure.
Well, here's one that you're going to like, and that is Kyle Shanahan's devious, their words, not mine, devious use of Kyle Juszczyk and Christian McCaffrey. They've got some fun plays, evidently, that Kyle has put in there just for his fullback and his running back.
Yeah, well, I'd love to see Kyle Juszczyk get some action in this game, but I think the Chiefs are going to be, more aware after seeing him break off that big play against the Lions. Now, that being said, if the Chiefs do manage to give up a 20-plus yard pass to Kyle Juszczyk, then they don't deserve to win the Super Bowl, because we've said many times where it doesn't matter how good the fullback is, which personally I think Kyle Juszczyk is the best fullback in the league right now, and I think he's even a Hall of Fame fullback to go that far. But you shouldn't be giving up 20-yard passes to your fullback. That's just pathetic. And if you do, then you don't deserve to win the game.
Well, you got to think that if Juszczyk is a factor, right, or if he's just playing decoy, you're opening it up for a plethora of other things to happen, and none of them are good for the Chiefs.
Well, that's the thing, right? It's another skill player that's going to cause problems, because now it's like, well, if you want to double Debo or you want to double Kittle, now you have another problem to worry about, who maybe wasn't even a problem up until we saw how he was used last week. And that's the other thing. Nobody really talks about the fullback, because obviously it's not a common position. Not every team runs a fullback out there. But technically speaking, Kyle Juszczyk is a very good, he's the best player at his position in the NFL. So, just another skill player that has a big impact in the blocking game, similar to how your tight ends would. So absolutely, I think Kyle Juszczyk could be a factor in this game.
Well, what we saw in the game, the 49ers game with Detroit, right, is you had McCaffrey, you had Juszczyk, and they have to be accounted for. So who can, you've got Debo, you got this kid Bell, who's a fantastic player as well. You got those guys you have to account for. What happens is that you don't have spy. You don't spy, Brock Purdy anyway. And by the way, Brock Purdy breaks off a 15-yard run or a 20-yard run or 15-yard, 16-yard run, whatever. He makes a chunk play because there's so many weapons that the 49ers have that you have to account for, that the quarterback is the last one on the list.
Yeah, and that is a big factor, especially after last week. Up until last week, just like how Juszczyk wasn't really, a factor you had to worry about, Brock Purdy running wasn't a factor, but you could see the hunger and the desire he had to come back and win that game. And, he showed it with his legs. And now that's a problem you have to worry about this week. And, as you said, you're not going to waste a spy on him because he's not a running quarterback. But now you have to be weary of the fact where not only does he have the best passer rating when under pressure this season, if you're going to pressure him, now you have to worry about him breaking off, that kind of run. And we've talked about it actually before, weeks ago in the middle of the season. It was a game, it was a Thursday night game, the Saints and the Jaguars. And the Jaguars pulled off a shocking win when Trevor Lawrence had that brace. And what was the key in that? Well, Trevor Lawrence was dealing with the knee injury. He had the brace on, and no one expected him to run. And a lot of the key players that put the Jags in scoring positions on those specific drives were plays where he was ripping off big runs because that wasn't expected to be a factor. So there's definitely, all credit to the Chiefs defense, because they definitely do have one of the best defenses in the NFL, the way they've played.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, there's going to be a lot of weapons to worry about it. And you just can't cover everybody, let alone double team everybody. So
right.
It's going to be just as tough for the Chiefs offense as it will be for the 49ers offense.
Right. And the thing too is that both of these guys, and what Brock Purdy did and what, Mahomes, everybody knows, can do, is they keep drives alive. It's not going to show up in the stats sheet, but that 6-yard run that Brock Purdy made, got him a first down, buys him more time. And the same with Patrick Mahomes. So, as you say, you're going to have to pay attention to the quarterback, because they will, if it's just a short run to keep a drive alive, that just makes the game longer and tougher for you to win.
Yeah, definitely. You always got to watch the quarterback, but now you have, obviously it's the Super Bowl, and really you do have two of the best quarterbacks in the league. Obviously Mahomes has been setting the league on fire since he came in, but I saw a video with Louis Riddick yesterday, and I think he said it best. Say what you want about the guy, but the stats don't lie, and Brock Purdy is one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL this season.
Mm-hmm. He's got the best passer rating, the best rating versus interception. Basically, you're talking about a guy who seemingly gets better under pressure.
Yeah. So, and who else do we know who does that? Patrick Mahomes, because that's the thing, is you can't blitz Mahomes because he'll burn you. So I think it's a very fair statement to say this is a game with two of the best quarterbacks in the NFL.
Oh yeah. In many ways, right? They're kind of mirror images of each other.
Yeah.
League-wide this season, there have been 76 different personnel groupings. Basically that have been used on at least 100, offensive snaps. Here's the ranking. The 49ers are the top team in the National Football League in different personnel groupings. They average 22 different personnel groupings per game on offense. That just goes to show you what you were talking about a minute ago when it comes to, how to hide their weapons, or how to, exploit the other team's defense by coming up with these creative offensive options. And it makes it easier because, at the end of the day, you've got, what's going on, the defense doesn't.
Yeah.
The biggest matchup on paper for the 49ers, basically, as we said before, is their running game. However, we saw last week that Detroit gave the 49ers all kinds of grief. That of when it came to running. What do you say about the Chiefs' ability to run on the 49ers? They've got guys there. Pacheco runs like he's mad at the world. He bangs off people. So he's a force to be reckoned with. And we just said Patrick Mahomes. But in many ways, Pacheco is the running game, but so they kind of use a run pass thing, which is is a variation of the old 49ers West Coast offense. And that's what they did last week when Kelsey, in the first half, they threw the ball to Kelsey He got targeted 11 times. He caught the ball 11 times. Now, I think the largest, what was it, 20 yards was about the largest chunk play that they got off of that. Most of it was just to establish, okay, you're not paying attention, you're paying attention to my running game. I'll just hit, I'll hit my tight end.
Yeah.
So,
I think we talked about how they were a big. We talked about how Pacheco needed to be a factor against the
right.
Ravens, and sure enough, they were able to run the ball against them. So I can see the Chiefs running the ball against the 49ers in the same sense as we saw the Lions have a lot of success with it. So yeah, I totally think that's going to be a key factor in this game if the Chiefs are able to get the run game going. But yeah, as you said, they use it in a very, very interesting way that we've seen a lot of teams that have struggled to run the ball do it where you get the quick pass out or whatever. You find ways to run the ball. It might not be a traditional running play, but it's to your running back, and it's you're getting them out in space, and that's what matters.
Right. Even a bubble screen to to Deebo Samuel is kind of like a running game because you're coming right off the line of scrimmage with the ball. So, but all that being said, they set that up so that later in the game they could they could go outside the numbers and go long. So it worked very well for them, in the first half. Trying to look at some averages here. Let's see. Purdy likes to push the ball downfield. His average pass is minimum 8.3 yards, which ranks 8th out of quarterbacks, the 32 quarterbacks in the league. So Brock Purdy is more of a guy who likes to fling it down the field. Mahomes, both of them can make the long throw. I mean, that's not a problem. But it's I think what Mahomes likes to do, if you watch what he does, he's looking for openings, and he doesn't mind throwing the ball in the middle of the field, and that's something a lot of quarterbacks try not to do.
Yeah, he does like to do that. Another thing he likes to do that quarterbacks aren't supposed to do is throw back across your body across the field.
Right.
So, but sometimes when you have that kind of talent and the throw is there, you feel like you can make it. You're going to make that throw. So I mean, if there's anybody I trust to do that, it's a guy like Patrick Mahomes. So that's definitely going to be a factor. But yeah, I think it helps how the run game sets up the 49ers. Going back to the thing with Purdy and the averaging over 8 yards per throw, I think that a lot of that has to do with Christian McCaffrey really opening up the game, because obviously they have such a strong running game on the ground, and they find such creative ways to run both McCaffrey and Deebo Samuel that it ends up opening up. So when Purdy does go to throw the ball, it's a lot of play action and downfield for those big passes, and you end up getting 25 yards to use check or whatever it is. But yeah, definitely that's going to be a big factor in this game, and I expect both quarterbacks to push the ball downfield. They definitely have the ability to do it with their arms.
Right. A lot of people don't realize a football field from sideline to sideline is a little over 53 yards. Okay. So if you're in the middle of the field and you're Brock Purdy or you're, Mahomes, and you take that snap and you turn around and you throw a bubble screen, you're throwing that ball 30 yards.
Yeah.
It doesn't, nobody looks at it and goes, well, he just threw it over to the, he's dinking and dunking you. Well, that first dink, it's like 30 yards. The second dink, it's 45 yards from, in the air. Yeah, it's not going straight, but, the field itself, you sit there and go, wait a minute. You have to remember, he's thrown from the center, and you were talking about throwing back across your body. Can you imagine how much strength it takes, arm strength it takes, to throw a ball across the field? And forward. So it's like across the field, you're throwing it 30 yards or 35 yards, and you're throwing it downfield another 10, 15, 20 yards. You're throwing a ball 70 yards total to get 25.
Yeah, and I definitely think people don't realize that's a big thing, and that's the reason why these quarterbacks are told don't throw back across the field, because as you said, you're ending up throwing twice as far just to get half the amount of yardage. And even then, the middle of the field is where all the defensive players are. So you're
Right.
risking, throwing into a mosh pit. Maybe a ball gets deflected up. And as we've seen so many times when a ball gets deflected up in the middle of the field, it's usually not good for the offense, because
Right.
there's always 3 or 4 defenders there just waiting to catch that ball as it's dropping.
It's like a balloon floating, at a carnival, right? You're running to grab it. But the difference too is in college game, the hash marks are only are only 17 yards away from the out of bounds line. So on the sidelines, in the NFL, they're 21 yards. So it's when they put a ball on the hash mark, it's much closer to the middle of the field than it is in college. So that's why sometimes you see people. Brock Purdy, who's 2 years out of college, uh, having some issues at times because they're not used to the hash mark being as close to the center of the field. And so, those are just some things to look at and pay attention to, when it comes to the actual field itself. Um, you know, the 49ers and both the 49ers, and I think it has to do with with their defensive coordinators and the personnel groupings. Both of them been very, very good at defending and also very, very good at using offense when let's say the Chiefs and Spags decides to go man coverage, right? If they go man coverage, that means you got some really good opportunities and matchups with your tight ends and with your Usheks and guys like that, and McCaffrey. And a lot of people don't realize how much Pacheco likes to catch passes out of the backfield, and we all know about Travis Kelce. So press coverage may not be the way to go when you think about defense on these teams.
Yeah, definitely. We've seen both teams can rip it apart too, and both have a big tight end that can really burn you in those man situations if you get the if you get the right matchup. So yeah.
Well, this is where Kansas City is missing Tyreek Hill. The 49ers have Debo. They've got that breakaway guy. The San Francisco hasn't found that. They've got guys who can catch and run, but they just haven't had. They've had key drops by some of their younger wide receivers who have the speed to make something happen. Tyreek Hill was that guy, and now he's doing it in Miami. So you'd have to give the advantage in the receiving core for the deep ball, at least for the moment, to the 49ers.
Yeah, definitely their receivers are better. Obviously, everybody wants to talk about Debo Samuel, who's the number 1 receiver, and they use him a lot in those jet sweeps. But really, Brandon Ayuk is the guy you got to watch out for. He led the team in receiving yards this year, and that's what I mean. When Debo's getting double teamed, he's the one that finds himself open in the middle of the field, and he's the one ripping off those big 40, 50-yard passes.
And he can catch the ball off of somebody else's helmet.
Yeah, so definitely he showed his athleticism and his hand-eye coordination with that one last week.
Gymnastic skills. He's falling on his back. The ball bounces off the head. It's a pretty wild thing. So, what are some of the things that you look for when you're getting ready to get getting involved in purchasing and making your wagers on these things.
Yeah, I mean, there's really there's so much to look at. I try to
Uh-huh.
just focus on the two teams. You know, you look at all the important stats with the offense and the defense. Like, got to make yourself aware. The Chiefs' defense has been playing very well these last few games. You know, like I said, the last 8 straight, they haven't given up more than a touchdown in the second half of games. So these are things you got to watch out for. There's so much to take in though with the Super Bowl. Like I said, it's only one game. All eyes are on it, and a lot of the information is out there and available to a large chunk of people. So definitely, yeah, I feel like you really have to look at everything. I really try to make myself aware of you know all the stats for both sides, the offenses, the defenses, the narratives of the games, some of these other, crazy things people like to throw out there. And obviously everything is weighted differently in my mind. But
Hmm.
at the same time, you got to just make yourself aware of all that information, even if it's something as silly as, the team wearing the white jersey has won 16 of the last 19 Super Bowls, right? Just maybe
Right.
like maybe it's something you don't weight heavily, but it's something you make yourself aware of, and it's just things
Sure.
like that where you gotta be aware of all the things that are going on, and just make sure that you're comfortable with the decision you made, that you've assessed all the information,
Hmm.
and you've decided that that's the right side to fall on.
Well, and at the end of the day, um, from my standpoint, I get paid to decide, to make a choice. Nobody, I hope. Let me preface this. I hope no one, you know, picks up the phone or picks up their phone and puts my information in to DraftKings to make a wager. That's your job. Is there ever a Super Bowl, or have you remember? I mean, I go all the way back as a kid to the first Super Bowl. Um, is it has there been a Super Bowl since you've been in the business that you just you said, look, I can do a whole bunch of other bets within the game, but the game itself, I really don't want to touch.
It depends, right? There hasn't really been a Super Bowl in my tenure as a handicapper where I've felt that way. Um,
Hmm.
Really, you could make that case for a lot of these big games, right?
Sure.
Because
Hmm.
there's so much going on. Obviously, a lot of
Hmm.
people that on one side you got the Taylor Swift Bowl, on the other side you
Right.
got the tail this people who are sick of hearing about Swift every week. So
Right.
there's a lot that alone could make me say I don't want to even watch the game, let alone hear
Right.
about it. But yeah,
Still bet on
personally,
it. Yeah.
right, that's
Yeah.
the thing, right? Personally, I love the sport too much, and when it
Hmm.
comes down to this big game, I want to be on the right side, so I put the
Hmm.
work in, and I comb through everything to try and make the best decision. I won't just look at a game like this and say I don't want any part in it.
Yeah. I mean, I understand. I mean, that makes sense.
Yeah, and you got to
Um,
remember, right? There's gonna be a winning side regardless. So
yeah.
it's all about, right. Like, you can say it's a bad game. I don't want to. I just want to stay off of it. But like, at the end of the day, one of the teams is going to win, and somebody's going to
Yeah.
cash their bet. Somebody's going to lose their bet. So I like the challenge of the big
Hmm.
game like this. Being on the right side of that,
Right.
putting in the work to find the right outcome.
And for the most part, there aren't massive point, differentials in the game. So, no one side is a 35-point favorite. So, it's one of those things where you just stand and decide. I mean, for me, it's always been the eye test, right? I mean, I've seen these teams play. I know what personnel is. I watch and make sure who's going to play and who's not going to play. And if I have to make a bet, bet. I'm sorry, a bet, not a bet, but a prediction earlier in the week. You know, it's um, it's based on everything that has come up into that point. And if somebody gets injured between the time I make my prediction and in the game, well, that part I can't help. But it is at the end of the day, it's a national holiday, whether people want to acknowledge it or not, and you get a lot of casual fans watching the game, and that's all good stuff. And so at the end of the day, I personally just enjoy watching the game and making a choice that is based on not on my how much I like a team or don't like a team, how much I like a coach or know players on one team or the other. It's just based on a professional view of watching football for 40 plus years.
Yeah, and it's funny that you say that because a lot of people have made the argument that the Monday after the Super Bowl should be a national holiday.
Right.
So
Yeah. Definitely, it's a sober up day. That should be Boxing Day.
yeah, you really want people, going to work still drunk from the night
I was
before.
I was gonna say I don't want to be in traffic on the road, after the game. It's yeah, that's why it should be a national holiday.
And then the next day you got the Kansas City Chiefs clogging up the streets with the
Like
Taylor
a
Swift
parade.
double decker bus. Like,
Yeah, it's like I kind of like what Tampa Bay did when they won the Stanley Cup and then won the Super Bowl, and that's have your parade on the water
yeah, yeah,
with the boats.
and then toss
That,
the Lombardi Trophy from one yacht to another, but
yeah,
try
that's a
not to drop.
genius move. Yeah, it's like, that thing weighs like about 45 pounds. It would be
You
down in
you,
the
you gotta
bottom of
be
the bay quick.
you got to be some kind of next level to just think I can make this, right. I'm Tom Brady, I can make this throw.
Oh, it was funny because there's actually audio on a video clip that they showed of Brady tossing it, where where his kid is going, "No, Dad, no, Dad, no, Dad, don't throw it." He's just like begging him not to do it.
Yeah,
Um,
when your child has a problem with it, maybe
right.
you need to look at yourself and think, am I sober enough to make the right decision here? Nah, I'm Tom Brady, I can make the pass. If I
Yeah.
can't do it, who can?
Well, even if I miss, I've got six others. So yeah.
Got some of the best wide receivers on the other boat. Let's go.
Yeah, somebody will catch it. Um, One thing they didn't have to worry about though when the Lightning won the Stanley Cup is tossing the Stanley Cup.
Yeah, you won't get too far if you try to do
That,
that.
that's not going to happen. I'm not sure who could toss the Stanley Cup. I mean,
You end up just dropping it right in the lake.
oh, you drop it in the bay, and
Or the bay,
80
sorry.
feet 80 feet later, you're still going down trying to find. You have to send submarines to get it. Um, so yeah, no, that's going to be wild. But no, there's all kinds of fun things going on, and tomorrow we'll begin in earnest to take even more of a in-depth look at it, and we'll talk. We'll get some fun time. In the next 2 days, we'll talk about what everybody likes to talk about, the prop bets.
Yes, we'll have tons of Super Bowl props likely tomorrow, maybe even spill it into Friday a bit. We'll see.
Yeah, you never know what might lurk here, so that's why you should come back. So, what do we got on the docket tonight, there, Mr. Amadeus?
Yeah, make sure you check out my premium picks at bigal.com, pickadvisor.com, and theinsidersroom.com. The links are in the description below. Coming off a nice 6-2 day. I cashed my college basketball AAC game of the year with your South Florida Bulls, Jim. And I also cashed my NBA game of the month with the Miami Heat. My Southeast game of the month. So it was overall a very good night. And you can make sure you check out my premium picks for tonight. I got another big play up. I got a Big South game of the year for college basketball, as well as five other college basketball plays. So 6 in total plus 1 NBA. And if you're looking to bet the Africa Cup of Nations in 10 minutes, I got 2 plays on the one game that you can go get for that one.
There you go. Sounds like a winner. We just got a quick thing here that came across about our Bill Belichick. It seems that, what do we got here? According to sources, Belichick was actually offered the Atlanta job and turned it down. So, not much of difference of what we thought, but okay, fair enough.
The only job he was
the only job he was offered,
interviewing for, he turned down. All right.
All right. Well, if that's the way they want to spin it, fine. It doesn't matter whether he turned it down or not. He's not coaching the team, so step up, Raheem Morris. Here he comes. So we'll go from there. Yeah. All righty. That's what we got, boys and girls. We will be back tomorrow, same time, right around 2:00. For Amedeus, I'm Jim. Be well, everybody. And don't forget to check the show box below for all of Amedeus' information. Okay? Take care, everybody.